All right.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We've been off for a week. I think I forgot how to do this. Anyway, so we just want to welcome Josh Kaplan, my brother-in-law, and brand new dad from SLI Group. And we're glad to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us and spotlighting kind of your business and what you do and talking to our audience. So, I just want to kind of dive right in and kind of let people know. I'd like to kind of just give you the floor to let people know exactly what you do and what SLI Group does and the different divisions and, get some information out to people about you and the company.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
SLI Group was founded back in 2012. Originally, we were primarily just an automotive parts company. We supply tier one manufacturers and car dealers across the country. Very soon after we had a lot of success in automotive, we mirrored our supply chain for the medical field. And of course, that has evolved over the years, but especially quickly during this pandemic. And we became a strategic sourcing company for everybody from hospitals, state government, federal government, distributors, doctors' offices, really with anything they need that their existing supply chains can't support.
Yeah, it's great. Josh, welcome and congratulations on being a dad. My question to you is, when you mirror a company, right? It's not always easy, and for many companies, it's very difficult to not only decide to do it but also execute, which I think is where a lot of companies get in trouble. Because there's there's people that need to the roles and responsibilities of who is doing what and the messaging to make sure that you don't dilute one and you can move forward, with both companies at the same time. So how did you really kind of not only plan, but roll out and execute the messaging, the systems, the processes, and that lane of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's twofold. Really, it was a protection aspect, especially in a pandemic. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen to your existing lines of business. You don't know how different industries are going to respond to what's happening, whether they're going to shrink and hide, or whether they're going to get in front of it and look at it as an opportunity. Really, it's surrounding yourself with a good team of people. If you have the right team, they can adapt and they can move with you as long as you have a clear, defined plan in the front. But look, a lot of this, especially in the pandemic, is reactionary. You're developing the market as you go, and you need to be able to move very quickly and have a team that you're able to deploy and maybe even reassign tasks on the fly, so that way you can manage the business that's in front of you.
And I think what I hear you talking about too is diversifying and making sure that you're in a space where you have more than one iron in the fire at the same time. And for people that don't know too, this isn't. I would imagine that there's a ton of people right now trying to get into the medical space, right? Like, and I think it's just important for everybody to know. You guys have been doing. Been in the medical space for some time and mirrored that, supply chain from the automotive to the medical, and you were already in a position to be ready to pounce kind of when the pandemic hit. My question to you is, so how did you initially, when you kind of started this off, did you have, as you were mirroring the business, were you mirroring the salespeople from automotive and moving those salespeople into the medical side as well? Or did you completely separate those?
At first, it was really the mechanism. It's what made us successful in automotive was identifying where manufacturing was and utilizing our relationships to buy from these international suppliers that may be providing, the brands that every day with their product. Very similar to the drugstore, CVS brand versus Tylenol or whatever it was. The system of finding where that's manufactured is the key to us. Because if you have a value add, if you have a product and the only thing that's different is maybe the packaging that it's in, and we're a much thinner organization than a lot of the huge brands that are out there. Then you have a competitive edge. You have something to go to market with. So that was step one for us. And then step two was, how do you get to the customer base? And really what we found is it doesn't matter whether it's an automotive part, a pharmaceutical, medical supply. It's really an extremely similar mechanism from a product acquisition standpoint and even a customer acquisition standpoint. So we mirrored as many of our processes as possible, and then identified what the nuances are for each industry, and figured out how to deal with them. In relation to the pandemic directly, there's a term out there that's called broker jokers. Really, what sets us apart.
I like it.
I've heard that before.
what sets us apart, and actually, it's very interesting because our automotive experience is really what's allowing us to perform during the pandemic. Because the most difficult part of operating in the climate that we're in is product acquisition and having the know-how to get product here fast and efficiently, to get it inspected in foreign countries. And really, that's what we've always done for automotive. It's always been an emergency expediter standpoint. So utilizing our talents from that sector, we've been able to be extremely successful in getting hospitals and government exactly what they need.
Josh, I have a question for you. Well, congratulations and kudos to you for pivoting and adapting, looking at your current roster and saying, hey, we have a great way during this pandemic to have retention and to give people safety at their jobs. So that's I love hearing that. But I want to kind of dive into something you said, which was customer acquisition, because I think a lot of times, a lot of people who are watching this are all types of business people, and we're focusing a little bit on sales. And I think sometimes salespeople don't realize there is a price to getting a client. There is a price to keeping a client, but then understanding what the lifetime value of a client is also really important. And so just to kind of, you got the lifetime value of a client, and then what it and then what a client's worth. And so when you look at customer acquisition, can you just kind of touch on that a little bit? Because you glossed over it, but it's something that I think most people really need to hear a little bit more of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it has to do with who we're competing with at the time. We step in as a problem solver for the customer. So our sales approach isn't that we're going out with a catalog or with a proposition even specifically for the customer. We're stepping in and saying, what problems can we solve for you today? And when we do that, we're competing with two different types of people. We're competing with existing supply chain, where maybe they're not performing for their customer, maybe they're on allocation, maybe their price points, they're taking a little bit too much advantage of a pandemic or whatever it is. So that's one person we're competing with. The other person that we're competing with is a pop-up shop that's in it to make a quick buck. And that's okay. Look, opportunist, that's fantastic. But really their motive isn't acquiring a customer, it's acquiring a sale.
Yeah.
And that for us is very easy to compete with, because really since 2013, what we've been looking for in the medical space is what problems can we solve to remain basically a primary vendor for that customer base. So what the pandemic has allowed us to do is to step in against these guerrilla sales organizations that are just enormous, that spend millions and millions and millions of dollars in customer retention, but can't fix that customer's problem today.
Mm-hmm.
So when we step in and we can fix that problem today, we don't care if when the hype was, we thought hydroxychloroquine was going to be a savior for this pandemic and nobody could get it. We found a way to get it, and we sold it to hospital systems. And really, when we sold it to hospitals, we sold it at cost. We didn't want to make any money. We are, again, not looking to acquire the sale. We're looking to acquire the customer.
The relationship.
Reason to keep talking to us.
Yeah, you're looking to acquire the relationship capital.
Yeah,
100%. And I mean that puts you in a position for, it's like, okay, listen, you know what? Let's prove ourselves. Let's provide a service and take care of some people and create that relationship. And in sales, that's everything. I mean, for just anyone and everyone we have on here, creating those relationships and creating quote unquote trust, between you and your customer is huge. So That's amazing that you guys have been able to do that. I just want to step back because it's interesting because most of the people, and John, I think you'll subscribe to this too, like most of the people that we have had on, in sales went through this, when COVID hit, it was like, okay, we need to be able to manage our sales team and try and talk with them and talk to our customer base and just say, by the way, are you, we're here for you. We weren't initially we weren't in like active sell mode. It was more so like, let's just reach out and further those relationships and sincerely reach out. Like, by the way, how are you? How's your family? Everyone healthy? And that went on for some period of time. And I know, you have a good amount of sales staff too. Did you find yourself immediately jumping in to find the need, or were you, because I feel like maybe your industry is different in that regard, and maybe you had to kind of just really jump right in and try and find the need and fill that void that wasn't there.
Well, I mean, I think that it went in two directions. Of course, you have salespeople that are uncomfortable with what's going on around them.
Sure.
All of a sudden, the climate's changed. What their daily function might have changed. Do they have a job next week? Is their office going to be open next week? Do they have a desk to sit at? Oh, I've got kids at home. I don't know how to work from home. I mean, you've got all these dynamics that they've never thought through before. We were very fortunate. We had enough seeds planted that we were immediately getting phone calls of problems. Oh, our supplier can't get us this. And this is automotive and medical on both sides. So we immediately had something to respond to. So that told me that what we had to do was field those inbound phone calls, but at the same time, lock down the product acquisition. Know that we're going to be able to support our base. So I really let the sales side of it kind of come in organically, at least in the first phase, while we locked down the product. And then whether it was an automotive salesperson or a medical salesperson, we said, don't worry, you've got a job. You're not being furloughed. If we can be open in the office, you'll be at the office. If not, we'll give you equipment to work at home. Whether we're going to have you call on hospitals or car dealerships, don't worry, you've got something to do. So ease their ear first.
Sure.
And then field inbound calls first, use them to create a base of performance. A lot of really large hospital organizations we performed for very, very quickly. So that established a lot of trust in the sector. They're willing to put their name behind SLI. They're willing to sign referrals, take phone calls, whatever it is. And really, there's a greater need on the medical side. What happened is this was no longer a sales job. This was no longer anything. If you were committing to a customer a product that they needed for the safety of their staff or their patients, well, it's no longer, what's the margin on this sale?
Sure.
How many times are they going to purchase? It's, if I don't perform, I'm putting somebody's life at danger. And that's a very different dynamic. At that point, it really changes the game.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like also, Jeff, from what I heard you say, you also had been planting a ton of seeds, and they began sprouting, which is great. And when you look now today moving forward, right, it's, we're like 7-8 months into just, COVID world. What I've seen is a lot of companies, saying, okay, here's our new 3-year vision, right? We had to reset, we had to reforecast, project things. How have you as a company, because you seem like you look at things big picture and then kind of zoom in very in a micro way. How have you adjusted your 3-year strategy, and how have you coached your salespeople to do the same?
So it's really different for each sector. So we during this 7-month timeline, we've watched automotive take a significant dip, but then come back immediately. The dip wasn't from an ordering standpoint. It was really from a logistics standpoint. Is their warehouse open to accept product?
Right.
Is their repackaging division open? So that in and of itself has made forecasting extremely dynamic and unique, because you have all the sales, but you don't know when you can deliver it.
Right.
So that's one side of it. The other side of it is we've watched the medical part of our business evolve from a few different angles. But at the beginning of the pandemic, it's all spot purchasing. It's, I need this now or I can't be open. And that ultimately, if you do a good job, that converts to, all right, well, here's my 6-month forecast. Here's my 12-month forecast. And really the mode that we're in now is acquiring long-term product lines inside of this customer base, which will allow us to develop, what type of capital we have to commit to that space. Overall, we've watched automotive stabilize. We're not going to see any slide whatsoever in our revenue in auto. So it went back to our 3-year forecast that was already in existence. On the medical side, it's really dynamic. The opportunity changes so quickly. The orders that we receive really aren't forward-facing more than maybe 30 days or 60 days for the most part, at least on the spot purchasing side. On the other side of things, whether it be a government contract or whether it be a supply order over 6 months or 12 months for a hospital, that's the next step of acquisition for us that will allow us to plan for the future.
It's great.
And I have Josh, you and I have talked about this because it's kind of amazing. It's different. John, I think you'll appreciate this too. So yes, you guys have put yourself in a position and been selling medical for some time, but there is, out there in the industry, it's not like, sales guys have been able to create the relationship they've created now with this it's a 6-month thing, right? Like, as far as like, every business in the area needing these particular PPE products, this is just, it's a newer thing. So, my question to you is as far as how do you advise or talk to your salespeople about the fact that there's so much opportunity out there, even if somebody's utilizing somebody else, they haven't had enough time. It takes me years, it takes John years, to create relationships. Him and I have known each other 10 years and I think I like him kind of a little bit now, but like, it takes some real time and there's so much opportunity. Like to me, it's so exciting to like, think about that, like where, like everybody, every one of your sales guys has the opportunity and the ability to, snag a client away from somebody else just because of the fact that there's, they haven't had that, opportunity to create a relationship with somebody. And I just am curious how you kind of guide them through that and give that positive feedback.
Well, what's really unique is that this generally isn't like a competition for business.
Right.
This is a customer saying, I have a need that hasn't been fulfilled. I have somebody that I called for it. They don't have it. So this door is wide open for
which is amazing in its own right. Like it starts that way, right? People are looking for them.
And whether one of my salespeople normally sells to a car dealership or a distributor or a hospital, whatever it is, what's very unique about this opportunity is they all have a need for a product that wasn't a focus of theirs in the past.
Sure.
Maybe if it was a doctor's office or a hospital, maybe it was a component of their supply chain. Maybe it was a component of what they purchased, but it was never their focus. Even a food distributor, for example, they had a gown, they had a bouffant cap, a shoe cover, but their business, their wheel turned regardless of who they bought that bouffant cap from. Well, now if their suppliers have a bouffant cap, they can't be open tomorrow.
Yeah,
they can't distribute their product. So both the urgency in the product line and the significance of what we're able to provide to them is just on a different level.
Yeah.
So what I tell my salespeople is use your networks. It doesn't matter if you're selling to a car dealership, a food distributor, or a hospital. Go to your customer, satisfy what their concern is. Maybe they don't understand what their full needs are even. Have a conversation.
Yeah.
Dig in. Figure out where to go with it.
Right.
With salespeople, one of the things I find with salespeople is it's hard for them to stay consistent, right? Consistent because consistency compounds over time. Consistent with all the small things, right? The follow-up. Most people give up after the third time, the third call, right? 80% of all calls don't get returned, and the goal of a call is to get a call back. A message is to get a call back, and people give up so quickly. And so how do you, before we move into our speed round, I'd like to know, how do you kind of get your people, as well as you, to stay consistent?
Well, look, there's I guess two different answers to that. In the pandemic, the opportunity is so large for the salesperson. They have an opportunity to make more money than they've ever made in their career.
Yeah.
It's extremely motivating. They really just want guidance on how to get there. We have a great sales team. Our sales team, if you give them a path and you show them how to walk down that path, they're going to do it. So that's during a pandemic. That's just a unique scenario. Outside of the pandemic, you need to be able to touch the customer and find out what the hurdle is. What's the barrier? It might be 3 phone calls before you even understand what they want to buy from you or why they won't buy from you. So what I do is a little unique. I'm not hey, talk to them 7 times before you hang up and don't call back. That's not my methodology. My methodology is learn about the customer.
Yeah.
If they give you an hour on the first phone call, maybe you've learned enough on your first phone call of how to do business with them. If they give you 5 minutes, maybe it takes 10 phone calls to figure out how to service that customer. But it's extremely unique. Right now in a pandemic, we're closing multi-million-dollar deals without ever meeting somebody, with maybe having 20 minutes of conversation on the phone.
Yeah.
It's just a different animal right now.
Different world. Yeah.
It really is.
You gotta figure out what's the quickest way to create trust.
Yeah.
What's the quickest way to get past that barrier? Is it referrals? Is it samples? Is it, maybe committing to something that somebody else can't commit to? Is it giving the customer open terms because everybody else is trying to pocket their money and not send them product? Prove yourself in the sale and then go from there.
Yeah, I love it. Josh, let's move to our speed round. Ready?
Sure.
Favorite book and why?
Pass. It's before 9 a.m. We're lucky if I've read the business article.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Love it.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's the hardest sales lesson that you've ever learned?
Work is not always equal to what you receive.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
One piece of advice you'd give a salesperson to finish the year strong?
Seize opportunity.
Yeah.
What would you tell your 20-year-old self if you were looking at him?
Keep going. Don't get discouraged.
I like that one.
I love it. Hey, Josh, tell everybody where they can get a hold of you, your ideal clients, and any information you want to give them.
Yeah, anybody who's in need, whether it's a traditional automotive part need or whether it's something that's popped up during this pandemic in medical. We have a wholesale pharmacy license. We supply DMEs. We carefully. But please reach out to our office, 248-242-7140. We're over in Novi. We do have offices across the country. And doors always open, looking for good business opportunity.
I love it. Well, Josh, I appreciate you being on the show. Congratulations on, growing a successful company, growing and scaling a successful company through a pandemic and COVID, keeping your people safe, and congratulations on having your first baby. Like we said right before we went on air, you'll never sleep again. So I appreciate you have a 1-week-old taking time to be on the show. I know life is really hectic and busy, but thanks very much. And Jeff, I'll let you close out.
Yeah, thanks, Josh, man, for coming on. And it's rough, definitely having a newborn for sure. But I've obviously known Josh a long time, and anybody listening, to the show, there's so much need out there, and to be able to deal with somebody who's just consistent, professional, knows what they're doing, gets the industry, understands the level of supply chain that needs to go on with both ends of it. Anyone would be lucky to have a conversation and reach out. Put your on the PPE side, put your people against. Put them against them and see if there's some savings to be had. And we really appreciate you being on the show, man.
I love it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Man. Thanks, Josh. Jeff, always fun. Thanks, man. Good times.
Absolutely.
Always. Thanks, guys.
Man.
Talk to you.
Yeah. Take care. Thanks.